You wake up in the morning and already feel that familiar weight in your chest, as if someone had placed a cold stone right there between your ribs. Your eyes open, but your soul remains closed, locked away in some dark and distant place you cannot reach. You get out of bed, not because you want to, but because you must, because the world demands that you continue performing this absurd theater of being alive. Your legs carry your body through the rooms of the house. Your arms execute the mechanical movements of brushing teeth, showering, getting dressed, but it's as if you were just a spectator watching someone who looks like you, living a life that should be yours. And then comes that terrible question you try to suffocate every day. When was the last time you actually wanted to be here? When was the last time you woke up wanting to live, not just survive? When was the last time you felt your existence had some purpose beyond simply continuing to breathe? If these words are echoing somewhere deep inside your chest right now, if you're recognizing this sensation of being alive but not living, then you are not alone in this experience that Franz Kafka knew so intimately. And today we will explore together what it really means when it's not just our body that is tired, but our very existence that has lost the will to continue. If you've made it this far, I know you're seeking something more than superficial answers to this deep pain you carry within yourself. This channel exists for people like you, who feel they are navigating a world that seems to make no sense, who live this constant disconnection between who you are inside and who you need to appear to be outside. Here, you will find genuine understanding for those feelings that seem to have no name. You will discover that other people also feel this existential strangeness, this sensation of always being displaced in your own life. It's not about false motivation or empty positive thoughts. It's about looking directly at the painful complexity of existing and finding authentic ways to reconnect with what truly matters. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, because this journey of deep self-knowledge is better when shared, and your like helps me continue creating content that truly touches the core of these existential issues that anguish us so much. You deserve a space where you can be completely honest about what you feel, where your pain is seen and understood, not judged or minimized. Franz Kafka lived this same existential anguish you feel now, this sensation of being trapped in a life that doesn't seem to be truly yours. In his works, he explored this shadowy territory of the human soul, where the constant sensation of displacement dwells, as if we were foreigners in our own existence. Kafka understood that there is a fundamental difference between being physically present in the world and being existentially engaged with life, and it is exactly this distinction we need to understand to begin healing this deep wound we carry. When he wrote about characters who woke up transformed into insects or who got lost in infinite and senseless bureaucracies, he was portraying metaphorically this universal human experience of alienation, this sensation that our real life happens somewhere we cannot access, while we live only a diminished and distorted version of who we really are. Existential tiredness is different from any other type of exhaustion we know. You can sleep 12 hours straight and wake up even heavier than when you went to bed, because sleep doesn't rest a soul that has lost connection with its purpose for being here. It's a tiredness that doesn't heal with vacations, doesn't resolve with external changes of job or relationship, doesn't disappear with superficial therapies that focus only on symptoms. It's the tiredness of constantly representing a role you didn't choose, of living according to expectations that aren't yours, of trying to fit your complex and multifaceted essence into social molds that were created for people you are not and never were. It's the exhaustion of trying to be normal when normality for you always seemed like a foreign language you never could completely master. This sensation of being tired of living doesn't necessarily mean you want to die, although sometimes it might seem that way in the darkest moments. It means you're tired of the impoverished version of life you've been forced to accept, of this half-tone existence where everything seems filtered through a thick fog that prevents the real colors of human experience from reaching your eyes. You're tired of waking up every day knowing you'll have to put on again that social mask that weighs like lead on your face, that you'll have to smile when you feel no joy, that you'll have to pretend interest in empty conversations about subjects that don't even remotely touch what truly matters to your soul. You're tired of living in a society that values productivity above depth, that confuses success with meaning, that treats symptoms of spiritual disconnection as personality defects that need to be fixed or medicated until they disappear. Kafka knew that this existential alienation is not a personal failure, but a natural response of a sensitive soul to a world that often seems to have lost contact with the sacred, with mystery, with everything that makes life worthy of being lived. When you feel your existence is tired, you're actually feeling the resistance of your authentic essence to continue participating in a reality that doesn't honor who you really are. It's your soul saying it can't stand living by halves anymore, that it can no longer pretend to be satisfied with crumbs when it was created to experience a complete banquet of meaning and genuine connection. And can you recognize yourself in this description? Have you felt this difference between being physically present but existentially absent from your own life? That sensation of interpreting a character that has nothing to do with who you are inside? If you're living this experience right now, if you feel your existence is asking for a pause, a transformation, a reconnection with something more authentic, leave in the comments, "I'm tired of living by halves." Your courage to name this experience might be exactly what another person needs to read today, to feel less alone in this journey of existential awakening. Sometimes, knowing we're not the only ones to feel this profound strangeness is already the first step to begin finding our way back home, to ourselves. The path back to authentic life is neither linear nor predictable, and Kafka understood this profoundly. His stories frequently portrayed sudden and inexplicable transformations, as if the soul, tired of waiting for gradual changes, decided to revolutionize everything at once. This is a real possibility in our lives, that one day we wake up and simply can no longer sustain the farce of being who we are not, that something in us categorically refuses to continue living according to scripts that other people wrote for our existence. And when this happens, although it might seem scary at first, it's actually a sign that our vital force is awakening from a long period of forced hibernation. The first thing we need to understand about this existential tiredness is that it's not a disease that needs to be cured, but a sign of spiritual health that needs to be heard. When your soul is tired of living an inauthentic life, it's functioning exactly as it should, resisting what doesn't serve, rejecting what doesn't nourish, refusing to continue participating in an experience that diminishes instead of expands your humanity. This tiredness is a severe but necessary teacher that forces us to confront questions we prefer to avoid. What do I really value? What genuinely brings me joy? What kind of life would I be living if I weren't afraid of others' judgment? What version of myself would I betray if I continued pretending I'm satisfied with this half-tone existence? The problem isn't feeling this existential tiredness, but trying to silence it with distractions, medications, or denial. We live in a culture that treats any emotional discomfort as a problem to be eliminated quickly, that has no patience for the slow and complex processes of genuine transformation that our soul sometimes needs to traverse. But Kafka teaches us that some human experiences cannot be accelerated or avoided, that we need to descend to the bottom of certain darknesses to find the light that's waiting on the other side. This journey through existential tiredness can be one of the most transformative experiences of our lives, if we have the courage to face it as an invitation to a more authentic life, instead of a problem to be solved. Real transformation begins when we stop trying to fix our existential tiredness and begin investigating it with compassionate curiosity. What exactly is tired in you? Is it the constant need to please people whose opinions, deep down, don't matter to you? Is it the pressure to maintain a public image that doesn't reflect who you really are? Is it the infinite repetition of activities that don't feed your soul? Is it the sensation of always performing, never simply being? When we begin asking these specific questions, we discover that our existential tiredness isn't a vague and indecipherable fog, but a detailed map pointing exactly to where our life needs to change. Kafka frequently wrote about characters who found themselves trapped in absurd and apparently inescapable situations, but these stories were never about resignation. They were about the fundamental human need to maintain our inner dignity even when external circumstances seem impossible to change. This is crucial for understanding our own experience of existential tiredness. Even when we can't immediately transform all aspects of our external life that exhaust us, we can always begin recovering our authentic relationship with ourselves. We can stop judging our feelings as problematic and begin seeing them as valuable information. We can stop trying to be who we think we should be and begin discovering who we really are when no one is watching. The process of reconnecting with our existential vitality frequently requires us to go through a period of conscious deconstruction of everything that isn't really ours. This can include relationships that drain our energy instead of nourishing it, careers that utilize our skills but ignore our values, routines that keep us busy but don't make us grow, beliefs about ourselves that we internalized from people who never really knew us. This deconstruction can be uncomfortable because it temporarily leaves us without many of the external structures we used to define our identity. But it's exactly in this empty and uncertain space that our authentic essence finally has room to breathe and reveal itself. One of the most liberating revelations of this process is discovering that much of what we thought was our personality was actually just survival strategies we developed to navigate a world that didn't know how to receive us as we are. The shy child who learned to be invisible to avoid conflicts, the sensitive teenager who developed a hard shell to protect from wounds, the adult who perfected the art of pleasing others to guarantee approval and acceptance. These adaptations were necessary and intelligent in their time, but when we continue carrying them far beyond their usefulness, they become prisons that prevent us from experiencing the freedom and spontaneity of being who we really are. Kafka understood that true transformation rarely happens in moments of great drama or decision, but in the small daily acts of honesty with ourselves. It's in the choice to say no to one more commitment that drains our energy, even if that disappoints someone. It's in the courage to express an authentic opinion, even if it's not popular. It's in the decision to spend time alone, exploring our own thoughts and feelings, instead of constantly distracting ourselves with external stimuli. It's in the practice of observing our habitual patterns of thought and behavior, without judging them, but also without completely identifying with them. Reconnecting with our existential vitality also requires us to develop a more intimate and respectful relationship with our natural cycles of energy and creativity. Our industrial culture trained us to function like machines, producing consistent results regardless of our internal state. But our soul operates more like a natural ecosystem, with seasons of expansion and contraction, periods of abundance and withdrawal, moments of inspired action and moments of contemplative reflection. When we force our existence to follow rhythms that don't respect our cyclical nature, we inevitably reach this state of deep tiredness that no amount of physical rest can cure. Learning to honor our internal rhythms means developing the capacity to distinguish between the natural tiredness that comes from a fully lived life and the toxic tiredness that comes from an existence that goes against our essential nature. The first type of tiredness is satisfying, like the pleasant exhaustion we feel after a day spent doing things that really matter to us. The second is that bottomless tiredness that characterizes existential burnout, that doesn't improve with rest because it doesn't come from having done too much, but from having done the wrong things for the wrong reasons for too long. This distinction is fundamental because it helps us understand that the solution to existential tiredness isn't necessarily doing less, but doing differently. Sometimes the most rested life we can imagine is actually a more engaged life, but engaged with things that feed our soul instead of draining our energy. It's possible to work intensely and still feel energized. It's possible to have demanding relationships that make us grow instead of diminishing us. It's possible to live a life full of challenges that inspire us instead of exhausting us. The difference is whether these experiences are aligned with our deepest values and our authentic nature. Kafka also teaches us about the importance of accepting that some parts of our existential journey will always remain mysterious and inexplicable. Not everything we feel needs to be completely understood to be honored. Not all emotional pain needs to be resolved immediately to be bearable. Not every question about the meaning of our existence needs to have a definitive answer for us to continue living with dignity and purpose. Part of spiritual maturity is developing the capacity to inhabit uncertainty with grace, to find peace in the absence of absolute answers, to discover that we can live fully even without completely understanding the mystery of being here. This acceptance of uncertainty isn't passive resignation, but an active form of courage that allows us to experience life without the need to control all its aspects. When we stop insisting that our existence needs to make sense according to external criteria, we create space to discover the unique types of meaning that our individual soul is capable of creating and recognizing. Some of us find purpose in beauty, others in justice, others in connection, others in exploration, others in care. There's no right way to exist. There's only our particular way of bringing our unique essence to this world that needs exactly what only we can offer. The return to existential vitality frequently surprises us by arriving not through great revelations or dramatic changes, but through small moments of reconnection with aspects of ourselves we had forgotten or neglected. It can be the rediscovery of a creative activity we used to love, the resumption of a relationship we had let die through neglect, the exploration of a philosophical question that always intrigued us but we never had courage to investigate seriously. It can be as simple as allowing ourselves to cry when we need to cry, laugh when something genuinely amuses us, or tell the truth when we're accustomed to saying what others want to hear. These small reconnections have a powerful cumulative effect. Like seeds planted in fertile soil, they gradually grow and multiply, creating a network of authenticity that eventually permeates all aspects of our life. We begin to notice we have more energy for everything when we're living according to our true nature. We discover that relationships based on mutual acceptance are infinitely less tiring than relationships based on performance and approval. We learn that work aligned with our values energizes us instead of exhausting us, even when it's challenging. The journey of healing existential tiredness also teaches us about the difference between solitude and isolation. Kafka was profoundly familiar with both states, and his works explore how solitude can be a sacred space of self-discovery, while isolation is a prison that separates us from genuine human connection. When we're tired of living, we frequently isolate ourselves by believing our pain is a burden to others, that our authenticity is too much for the world to bear. But the truth is that our honest vulnerability frequently creates stronger bridges of connection than any performance of having our lives completely resolved. Learning to share our experience of existential tiredness with people who can receive it without trying to fix it or minimize it is a crucial part of the healing process. This doesn't mean dumping our problems on anyone willing to listen, but rather cultivating relationships where we can be completely honest about our human experience, including its darkest and most confusing parts. These relationships become refuges where we can rest from the exhaustion of performing normality, where we can explore who we are when we're not trying to be who we think we should be. As we begin to emerge from the most intense period of existential tiredness, we frequently discover we've developed an increased capacity for empathy and understanding for others' struggles. Having navigated our own darkness makes us wiser and more compassionate guides for people who are traversing similar journeys. Our pain transforms into wisdom, our confusion into clarity about what truly matters, our isolation into a profound capacity for authentic connection. This doesn't mean suffering is necessary or that we should seek it, but that when it comes, we can learn to work with it as a teacher instead of resisting it as an enemy. Kafka left us a legacy of hope disguised as pessimism. His stories might seem dark on the surface, but deep down, they are about the indomitable resistance of the human spirit, about our capacity to maintain our inner dignity even in the most absurd and challenging circumstances. They remind us that our humanity doesn't depend on our capacity to resolve all the mysteries of our existence, but on our courage to continue asking important questions, to continue seeking connection and meaning, even when the world seems to offer no clear answers. When your body lies down, but your existence remains tired of living, remember that this tiredness can be the beginning of a journey, not the end of a story. It can be your soul asking to be heard, your authentic essence struggling to emerge from under the layers of adaptations and compromises you needed to make to survive to this point. This tiredness can be an invitation to a more truthful life, more aligned, more yours. And although this journey might not be easy, it can be deeply rewarding in a way you might never have experienced before. What did you discover about yourself exploring these ideas today? How has your relationship with your own existential tiredness changed during this time we spent together? Your experience and reflections in the comments enrich our collective understanding of these profound themes, and your engagement with this content inspires me to continue exploring these questions that touch the heart of human experience. Thank you for your presence and courage to examine these more complex aspects of being alive in this mysterious and challenging world we share.